is the problem. And so if there's any topics that are just mere discussion, points of information and don't involve the consent of the board or a vote, we could start with that.
Like your reports?
The reports. Yeah, the question is whether we want to start down that for 15 minutes. We can do that.
We could, let's see. Yep. We will wait till 10:15 to start. I'm sorry about that. But that's what we're going to do. We have to be official. So thank you, everybody. And I will announce as soon as we can start. So hang out, visit with everybody, enjoy your time, and we'll start.
Forced network. No. Which they did.
And first order of business is welcome back Adam Ariki, one of our charter members to the Watermaster Board. Welcome back, Adam.
Hi, everybody. It's nice to be back among friends. Welcome back, Adam.
And now we can do the roll call.
Director McLaren.
Here.
Director Ariki.
Here.
Director Calandring.
Here.
Director Urasic.
Here, and I apologize to everyone.
No problem. Director Paris.
Here.
Peter Thompson.
Here.
Arden Wells.
Here.
Craig Parton.
Here.
Everybody's present.
Great. Thank you, Patty. And now we're on item 4, adoption of the agenda. Is there a motion to adopt the agenda?
So moved.
Moved by Kathy.
Second.
Second by Brandon. Is there any discussion? Hearing no discussion, all in favor of the motion to adopt the agenda by roll call vote?
Director McLaren.
Yes.
Director Ariki.
Yes.
Director Calandring.
Yes.
Director Urasic.
Yes.
Director Paris.
Yes, motion's carried unanimously. We're now on public comments for non-agenda items. Public comments for non-agenda items. No public comments for non-agenda items. Now we're on the consent agenda. Financial report, month ending February 29th, payment of bills, March 14th, 2024, and minutes from February 28th, 2024 of our regular meeting. Peter, anything you want to highlight?
Nothing to highlight, and I'll turn it over to Patty if she has anything.
Nothing? We're good. Is there a motion to adopt the consent agenda?
So moved.
Motion made by Kathy.
Second.
I think Derek was going to second that, Brandon.
I was
Derek?
going to second it. Yes, sir. Thank you.
Derek second. We got to share the floor a little bit. Thank you, Derek. Any discussion? No discussion. All in favor of the motion to adopt the consent agenda by roll call vote?
Director McLaren.
Yes.
Director Ariki.
Yes.
Director Calandring.
Yes.
Director Urasic.
Yes.
Director Paris.
Yes, motion's carried unanimously. We're now on the advisory committee report. Dennis?
Thank you. Dennis Lamoureux with the advisory committee. And I believe everything should be clearly laid out in the memo. Did want to emphasize a couple of things.
Please.
On the bills. The committee asked for maybe a little more detail on the AVAC invoice.
Okay.
For administration. And then we did fill out an evaluation form for Todd Groundwater. And there was some concern that maybe that whole process should be a little bit more public instead of closed session. So that's the comments from the committee.
I appreciate that. Thank you very much. And Peter, any problem with more detail on the administrative?
We've discussed it, and we'll include the hours for each position.
Okay, great. And will that suffice, Dennis, if we do that?
That's what was requested.
Requested, great. And then Craig?
Yeah.
Any discussion regarding closed session for our evaluation of the Watermaster?
No, we come out in public session to discuss what potential retention we might have of Todd Groundwater. We're taking public comment there'll be plenty of opportunity for public consideration. What we're doing is an evaluation of employee performance, which we're allowed to do in closed session. So we're watching that carefully. We obviously want public input. We've asked for it. We've received some already, and we'll be getting more, I'm sure, as the process develops.
Okay, great. And Dennis, item 18 will come out closed session. So I'll ask the public to remain who wants to have a discussion in that area. And then we'll go on to item 18 and go from there.
Sounds good. Thank you.
Mr. Lamoureux, just so you know too, I know there was some discussion with the advisory committee on wanting some more clarity with the non-restricted and restricted funds. I've spoken with Peter. We're going to try and come up with a solution on that as well.
Right, yeah, some of the, understood. I'll just leave it at that. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dennis. And now we're on item 8, consideration possible action on final draft request for qualification to provide for professional administrative services. And who's going to head that discussion, Peter?
I'll take that.
Go ahead.
All right, so we received the feedback from the advisory committee on the RFQ, and go ahead and let's go to the next slide. So there's a few comments. We did go back and utilize the previous comments from last meeting and really revised it to remove the sections that kind of tilted more towards an RFP. We improved the clarity and the sequence of the RFQ. We emphasized the two-step process, and we also reduced the expected term of the contract to 2 years, utilizing the feedback we got from the board and the advisory committee. We did receive some new comments from the advisory committee. If you could advance the slide. So those were limited. So we must have done a much better job this go around because we had much fewer comments. But there is some clarifying language, and I feel comfortable adding that clarifying language and that's included in the advisory committee's packet. They also want to add a bullet to the schedule for an RFP conference call. We don't have a problem with that. They want to delete item 20 from the exhibit A, which was the list of duties for the interim administration. And I've been resisting changing that document just because that's pointing towards an existing document that that the Watermaster has approved. But I think for clarity purposes, it might be good to just delete 20 from that. And that's referencing developing an RFQ and RFP for Watermaster admin. The one that I'd like to get some consensus from the board on is there was a request to add to the desired qualifications, and that was the line that you see there in quotes, experience maintaining financial records and supporting audits of those records. I feel like from my perspective, that's a meaningful addition, and I would support adding it, but I just wanted to make sure that the board was comfortable with that addition.
Absolutely, from my perspective.
Yes.
Mine too.
Okay.
And Derek, comment on that?
No, I think that's a great add and appreciate them including it.
Great, thank you. I think you have consensus, and there's no action item in this meeting, right?
So there is. So what we're requesting is action on approving the RFQ. So it'll be contingent on me adding in the comments from the advisory that I outlined right there. But we are seeking approval to finalize the RFQ and send it out.
The only thing I would, just for discussion's sake, I would prefer to have a completed document that goes through the advisory committee, just looking at what the history has been with our prior RFQ and things. So my preference would be to have a completed document that's in the agenda that the advisory committee has looked at. And if they come back with more corrections, maybe do it at that point, because what you're what we're doing right now are some not major additions or subtractions, but important ones. And so that would be my preference, but what's the consensus?
I agree.
I agree. And then they had a draft list of candidates on that too, that I was on the call for the advisory committee. There was some discussion on the draft candidates. Can you explain to me how we're selecting the draft candidates and kind of what's going on with that?
Thank you. That'll be on our next slide there. I just want to clarify. No, that's quite all right.
Anticipate that question.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Not on the next slide, but this does play in. So if we change those things and then we bring it back to the committee, then that will change the schedule. And we're comfortable doing with whatever the board prefers. So that next slide is that schedule. I wanted to just walk through that to prep the board. But so you can imagine that it'll just change all of those dates by 1 month.
1 month.
And so my understanding, then we'd be tabling the RFQ until the next meeting. Is that?
We need to hear advisory comments. Right, Rob, you want them to review the...
Yes, I would like the advisory committee to review the final draft of the RFQ. I just think it's important from what our history did.
Understood. And maybe it'd be valuable to hear from the advisory committee at this time. My understanding is that there was pretty minimal tweaks and there was overall satisfaction with it. They may be at a place where they're comfortable with the addition of their comments moving forward. But I don't know if Dennis would want to speak to that or not.
They were caucusing.
I think the memo is the consensus of the committee, so I can't speak for the whole committee standing here. I think those comments came from just one member of the committee, and there were no additional discussions about that other than the need for, or specifying the financial background. Most of the discussion ended up on the distribution list. And if there could be an expansion of that for just general administration or financial firms. So I don't know if that would change between now and next month or not for the committee to comment on. But that would be, I think, what I'm authorized to say.
Great. Thank you, Dennis.
Stan Powell has a question.
Stan, a question?
Yes, this is a comment. I'm the person that provided, I think, most of the comments on this round. I thought the RFQ that we got to look at before my comments were considered was pretty good. I think Peter is talking about accepting the ones that seemed most important to me. And so personally, I am not feeling uncomfortable with the idea that the Watermaster Board could approve this without further advisory committee review, at least on my behalf. Can't speak for the committee, but that's my view.
So basically what they have in their thing here with the little red lines and the adding of the maintaining financial records and supporting audits of those were the items that they wanted changed.
And I'm comfortable making those changes.
So does that change the way you guys feel about it?
Again, just because of what happened in the past, I think it's real important that we get this perfect. And I'd like the advisory committee and everyone on the advisory committee the chance to take a final look at the final product that we're going to approve. And on the agenda for the next meeting, have an action item. There's no action item on this. I don't know if there needed to be, but we should have one. Just so that we give everybody complete input into this process. That would be my preference.
Okay.
Eric also
Is
has-
there any times constraints that you see us needing to have a special meeting or something to do it? Or you're fine with everything time?
At the pleasure of the board.
Derek also has a question.
Derek, go ahead.
Yeah, Rob, I just was going to say, you said it well. Just I would reiterate what you said. I think it's very important that we bring it back to the entire advisory, committee, and I don't want to put Dennis on the spot to speak for everyone and allow that process to take place like you recommended.
Good. Consensus?
Yes.
Okay. So there's nothing to table. There was no action item.
Item number 8.
Is consideration and possible action.
Yeah.
Number 8.
Consideration of possible action on final draft request. Okay.
So do we need a motion to table it?
I don't think so. What would your preference
We
be?
should table it.
Table? Okay. Thank you, Craig.
You do a motion to table it?
I move to table item 8A.
Second.
Motion to table item 8A till our next regular meeting. Any discussion on that motion? Hearing no discussion, all in favor of the motion to table item 8, consideration possible action on the final draft request for qualification to provide professional administrative services by roll call vote.
Director McLaren,
Yes.
Director Ariki,
Yes.
Director Calandry,
Yes.
Director Urosik,
Yes.
Director Paris.
Yes, motion's carried unanimously. That brings us to item 9, consideration and possible action on new production applications. I believe that will,
We gotta do B.
18.
oh, I'm sorry, thank you. I'm a little jet lagged, so I just got back last night.
He's back in
No worries.
America.
No worries. So we'll bring this one back. I imagine we'll table this one as well. But Holly, could you advance the slide? Just wanted to address Director Calandry's question about how was the list developed. So staff looked through the previous distribution list and pulled off what they felt would be viable candidates and added them. Then we also did some research for local basins, kind of in the southern central California area, to look for other people or firms that provided similar Watermaster administrative services, and we added those. And then we hear the feedback of the advisory committee, wanting to know if we could reach out to general administrative firms or financial firms. We don't see any of that within the scope of Watermaster administration or Sigma administration. So we don't see any firms like that, but if they want additions and they have specific firms, we'd be happy to add those on. We have not received any input for additions to the list at this time. We're planning on advertising the RFQ on the Watermaster website, also on the Aqua website. And we're going to send it also to the other basin managers to send out to any other candidates that they feel like might be appropriate. So we're planning on casting the net wide. We're open to adding to the list. And, this is the base list. This is what we will send it out to. It's going to be a public document. If, after this list is published, sent out, it doesn't mean that RFQ can't be sent to other entities or people. So,
Any qualified person can bid on it, correct? Not just the list we're sending out.
right.
So as long as that's clearly stated and we have it on the website, I'm good.
Okay. So if there's one more slide, Holly. So we're looking for feedback from the board if there's any additional candidates that you felt like should be on the list. If there's additional external postings or any other feedback on the development of the distribution list, we'd be happy to hear that.
Great. Thank you, Peter. Discussion?
I think this item needs to be tabled along with that item A, to be able to give the advisory committee some more time to throw any suggestions of alternative firms that they may find in the interim.
Derek, any discussion?
No, I agree with that and would second that if that's a motion from Brandon.
Okay, motion has been made by Brandon to table item 8B and second by Derek. Is there any further discussion on the motion to table? Consideration possible action on new production application. And I think that might be the Arden show.
Hi, good morning. This is Arden. So the first application that we have today is a new production application for Mr. Jesus Rio Moreno. And this is for 2 acre-feet per year for domestic use for a single family home with drought tolerant landscaping. And this includes growing 2 acres of cactus on the property. So Mr. Moreno is wanting to build a 1,800 square foot single family home with a 2,400 square foot steel building and a barn on the property. And there would be 1/2 acre of drought tolerant landscaping and then 2 acres growing cactus. And so we did a little bit of a deep dive with this, working with Duke Engineering to estimate the water demand for growing cactus over 2 acres using 2 different methods, either by looking at by acre what other farmers have reported and landscapers have reported for the water demand, and then also estimating the number of plants. And it was estimated that 1 acre foot per year would go towards the cactus. The property has shallow or exposed bedrock throughout it. So the applicant voluntarily hired a geophysical survey to identify locations within the property where a suitable well could likely be drilled. And so that was included in the application. And this new production would be used in a manner consistent with California best water management practices, including drip irrigation. And due to the small volume and the obligation to pay replacement water assessments, Todd finds the potential for material injury to be negligible. And the advisory committee had 10 members recommending this application and 1 member not recommending it. And the previous version of the application had listed this as commercial use, but it is domestic use, and that was clarified in the board packet. Are there any questions about this application?
Arden, this is Brandon. I have a question for you on the well design. Does that well design say that's an 18-inch casing?
Let me check that real quick. I don't have it immediately in front of me.
No problem. I just wasn't sure if you could see it better than I can on my copy.
Um, 8-inch.
Okay, thank you.
Yes.
Okay, any other comments, questions? Is there a motion to approve resolution number R2417?
Motion.
Motion made by Kathy, second by Adam. Is there any discussion? Hearing no discussion, all in favor of the motion by roll call vote?
Director McLaren,
Yes.
Director Ariki,
Yes.
Director Calandri,
Yes.
Director Urosic,
Yes.
Director Paris.
Yes, motion's carried unanimously. We're now on item 10, consideration possible action on transfer application. And Arden, continue.
Thank you. There are 3 transfer applications this month. The first one is a transfer from the estate of Eugene Nebeker to Long Valley Road. This is for 190.16 acre feet of a one-time transfer of carryover water. Eugene Nebeker is an Exhibit 4 party, and in 2021, he sold land to WDS California 2, and with that, all of his Exhibit 4 production rights. However, the party retained 570.3 acre feet of carryover water and has zero production rights, but has remained an Exhibit 4 party. And so his estate is transferring 190.16 acre feet of that carryover water to Long Valley Road. And Long Valley Road was a small pumper in the judgment, but it produced more than 3 acre feet per year. And this was for the maintenance of a potted plant nursery. So they became a new production, or received new production last year, 300 acre feet per year. And over the last few years, their production has decreased a bit. Last year, they produced 220.79 acre feet, and they have a 189.9 acre foot replacement water obligation because their existing carryover water, their existing transfer water did not cover all of the production last year. And the water levels near Long Valley Road are stable or slightly declining. So recognizing that this is a one-time transfer to offset replacement water obligations, and the transfer does not represent new pumping, and also that Long Valley Road's production has decreased in recent years, Todd Groundwater finds the potential for material injury to be negligible. And this was recommended by unanimously with 11 votes by the advisory committee. Are there any questions?
Any questions, board? Public? Yes, go ahead, Ms.
I was just
Kyle?
curious.
Come on up and just state your name and
Julie Kyle.
say your question.
I was just curious as to the water levels. Have they been having their wells tested out there? Or how are we getting?
Yes, so the water levels are looking at hydrographs from water levels measured by the USGS. And there is a well that is adjacent to the Long Valley Road property that is measured every year by the USGS. So we're looking at annual water levels.
Okay, because I would be surprised that they would be declining because there's quite a bit less farming in that area. And all of our wells are coming up. We're in a different area, but every single one of our wells is up.
And I would imagine this doesn't show them. Does it show the 2023 reading yet or after our last water year?
Not yet. We've been following the USGS measurements coming in, and many were taken at the very end of this month, including some last week. So next month, the applications will have the updated water levels for this year. But we do see on figure 2, some of the hydrographs do show either water levels were dropping in the past, and really in the last few years since the judgment has been finalized and production has been decreased, the water levels have stabilized or they've significantly reduced in the rate of the decline.
Thank you, Arden.
Great.
You're very welcome.
Thank you for that question, Julie. Good response, Arden. Any other questions by anyone? Okay. Is there a motion to approve resolution number R2488?
Motion.
Made by Kathy, second by Adam. Is there any discussion? Hearing no discussion, all in favor of the motion to approve resolution R2418 by roll call vote?
Director McLaren,
Yes.
Director Ricky,
Yes.
Director Calandri,
Yes.
Director Urasic,
Yes.
Director Parrott.
Yes, motion's carried unanimously. That brings us to 10B, resolution R2419. Arden?
Thank you. So this is for a transfer from with 10 acre feet per year from Richard Selleck and 10 acre feet per year from Steve Selleck to 40th Street East Water Group for a total of 20 acre feet of one-time carryover water. So both Steve and Richard Selleck are Exhibit 4 parties in the Central Antelope subarea, and they have not produced from their well in recent years. And 40th Street East Water Group is also an Exhibit 4 party in the Central Antelope subarea. 40th Street East was granted 37 acre-feet of new production in 2020, and then purchased 1 acre-feet per year, received via transfer, and became an Exhibit 4 party in 2021. So this transfer will be used to maintain the current production rate of, on average, 11.9 acre-feet per year at 40th Street East. I also just want to make a note that when we are looking at transfers for either current or future replacement water obligations, especially when it's coming from the same general vicinity and sub-area, the material injury analysis often can kind of come down to, is this versus purchasing replacement water assessments and having that water recharged at a banking facility, which is going to have more material injury. And given all of this, we find that this transfer is just to offset future replacement water obligations and does not represent new pumping. And Todd Groundwater finds the potential for material injury to be negligible. And this was approved by the advisory committee, or recommended for approval, with 11 yes votes unanimously. Are there any questions?
Any questions? Is there a motion?
Move to approve R2419.
Is there a second to that motion?
2420.
2419.
2419.
Richard Selleck.
Richard Selleck.
I'm sorry, yes.
Second.
Motion seconded by Kathy. Is there any discussion? Hearing no discussion, all in favor of the motion to approve resolution R2419 by roll call vote?
Director McLaren,
Yes.
Director Ariki,
Yes.
Director Calandri,
Yes.
Director Urasic,
Yes.
Director Paris.
Yes, motion's carried unanimously. We're now on resolution R2420, item 10C. Arden?
Thank you. So this is the last transfer today. This is from Craig and Marta Van Dam to California Compaction Corporation. It's for 1 acre-foot per year of permanent production and 30 acre-feet of carryover water for a temporary one-time transfer. So Craig and Marta Van Dam are an Exhibit 4 party, and they have wells in the Central Antelope subarea. California Compaction Corporation is not a party to the judgment. They'd like to purchase production rights as an investment and become a party to the judgment after intervention. California Compaction Corporation is an engineering site development contractor. They do not currently have a point of extraction identified for water use in this transfer, so we cannot conduct a material injury analysis. So we recommend that this application is approved on the condition that California Compaction Corporation intervenes in the judgment and then submits a new point of extraction application or a subsequent transfer application before this water is produced. And this was recommended for approval by the advisory committee with 10 recommendations and 1 abstention. Are there any questions?
Any questions? Anyone? Hearing no questions, is there a motion to approve resolution R2420?
I move to approve R2420.
Motion made by Brandon. Is there a second?
Second.
Motion second by Kathy. Is there any discussion? Is that water in the central
Yes, Central Sub-area
basin?
Yes.
Okay, any other questions? Hearing none, all in favor of the motion to approve resolution R2420 by roll call vote?
Is it understood with the condition that you just stated, Arden stated?
I'm sure that's in the resolution.
Yes, all three are in the resolution.
All,
Spelled out.
okay. Great, thank you. Any other questions? Hearing none, all in favor of the motion by roll call vote.
Director McLaren,
Yes.
Director Riki,
Yes.
Director Calandri,
Yes.
Director Urasic,
Yes, yes.
Director Paris.
Yes, motion's carried unanimously. That brings us to item 11, consideration possible action on non-production monitoring well applications. That's going to be Angel show now. Sorry, Arden, you're off.
Thank you, Rob. So this month we have one non-production well application. This application is for the United States Air Force, and it is in connection with a site cleanup, an ongoing site cleanup at Plant 42. This non-production well will extract contaminated water from one area and use carbon filtration to clean the water and re-inject it back into the aquifer. There will be no net water loss to the aquifer during this process. However, the United States Air Force does have an outstanding invoice at this time, so we are recommending approving this application with the condition that that invoice is paid, meaning that I will hold that approved application until I receive a check and then hand it over, but to delay any further, to have any further delays for recommending that.
Very good. Any comments, questions? Derek, go ahead.
Yeah, thanks. Just a question to staff is, I mean, haven't we talked about if there is someone, no matter who it is, that hasn't paid, that we won't approve it, period?
Derek, I just want to give my 2 cents on that. So my understanding of the judgment and the rules and regulations is that the United States Air Force does not actually have to have approval from the Watermaster. However, they are asked that they submit applications and let us know of their wells that are drilled for information and record keeping purposes. So therefore, this application I feel is just a little different than the others. But that's just my thoughts on this application.
They're just extending us courtesy.
Yes.
Well, I'm just thinking procedurally, maybe in looking to council, I just don't want to come back and someone say, by the way, a private citizen, you approved, based upon this and you didn't approve us. So that's just my only call out, and I'll look to council and staff for guidance.
Thank you, Derek. And I'll let Craig weigh in on this one.
The issue of whether we have jurisdiction over the United States government is a tricky one. The fact is they're influencing water quality in the basin. We have jurisdiction over the quality and safe yield of the basin. We ask for people to be public about their applications for remediation projects. The federal government has done so. My advice is that I think this is the proper way to go, where we approve subject to the payment of the assessment, the outstanding balance that's due from the federal government.
Probably one we don't want to litigate.
I don't think we're being asked to do that. This is a reasonable account receivable. It's been outstanding for a while. This is the way we treat everybody under the judgment. If they owe money to the Watermaster, they owe production reports, and they want something from you, they need to bring the record clean and pay.
Great. Thanks for the explanation, Craig.
So, Craig, to be clear, your recommendation is approval contingent on payment.
Correct, and that's in the resolution.
Just want to crystal clear.
Great. Any other discussion? Hearing none, is there a motion to approve 11A Resolution R2421?
I'll make it move to approve Resolution 11A R2421.
Motion made by Brandon. Is there a second? Second by Adam. Is there any discussion? Hearing no discussion, all in favor of the motion by roll call vote?
Director McLaren,
Yes.
Director Riki,
Yes.
Director Calandri,
Yes.
Director Urasic,
Yes.
Director Paris.
Yes, motion's carried unanimously. We're now on the administrator's report. Update on administrative activities.
All right, I'll take that. Ollie, can you advance the slide? we just want to go through our current activities that took place in March, and then also what's going to be taking place in the next 2 months. So staff did send out the reminder notices for the unpaid fixed assessments. We did put together the RFQ and distribution list for consideration, and also put together a template for Watermaster engineer performance evaluation, and began the audit process. So we can punt that last bullet, staff to send out RFQ to April. And then as we look forward to April, it'll be a busy month. We're going to prepare and mail the replacement water assessments and variable assessment invoices, assess delinquent fixed assessments. There will be a sub-area management advisory committee meeting. Staff will begin, we may begin working on the RFP, or we may move that to May. Then we're at the April meeting, we'll have a presentation on the first quarter 2024 budget versus actuals report. And then we'll also have the draft audit report available at that meeting as well. As we look forward to May, we'll be confirming with the city of Palmdale that they'll hold, that they will assist the elections for the landowner seats. And we can move that RFQ responses out to May or out to June. And then the board, and then also the selection of RFQ respondents. So we'll be shifting some of those RFP activities out to June. But April will be a busy month. And that concludes the look ahead, unless there's any questions on the activities that we've.
I do have one comment on the look ahead for our April meeting. We're scheduled to have that meeting on the day of the Antelope Valley livestock auction, and several of our advisory committee members, as well as our board members, have obligations to that. We do need to have a discussion before we let go today of a possible alternative date for the meeting or how to handle that. Because we could have trouble achieving a quorum that day.
Yeah, good comment. Thank you, sir. Let's make sure we take that up at the item 19.
Yes.
What would your recommendation be? April 17th, the week before?
Probably.
How would that impact you guys?
Have an advisory meeting.
Oh. Could we?
That doesn't work for me. I mean, the 24th still does work for me. I don't know if there's an alternate. I don't know the rest of the board. I know Brandon, it may be an alternate for you, but if there's other board members, their alternates aren't available.
Yeah, it's just something to be brought to everybody's attention, at least to be discussed.
Derek, we were hoping you'd be at the livestock show too.
In spirit, how about I come up before and after?
We're trying to get greater participation this year. We want to set a record for the auction. So
I will tell you, I do appreciate Bolt House's Farms' continued years of support. All joking aside, they're good supporters of that livestock auction.
no, Bolt House has done a great job, as has many of the other landowners and other companies. So sorry for that, Derek. That's just a quick commercial.
No. Hey, it went in my favor, so I'll take it.
All right. Any other thoughts or questions on the Outlook schedule?
One last comment. I don't want to get in trouble with Derek later. I said Bolt House Farms. I meant Bolt House Properties.
I knew what you meant.
And we can work on Bolt House Farms too.
There you go.
Okay.
All right. Then
Good discussion, good report.
we just have one more item.
Great.
So next slide. There's been discussion from the board, and I think it was one of Director Urosic's comments from January or February that was about asking, has staff looked at the applications? Are people in compliance when they apply? And we do make sure that they're complying. So Angel looks, make sure that the annual production report is done, and And we look to make sure that they're paid up. And also Todd does some of that investigation as well. But what we noticed is there wasn't anywhere that verifies that on the transfer, on any of the applications. So what staff is going to do, we're not going to change the applications materially, but we are going to put a transparency checkbox that shows that staff has assessed those things and that they are in compliance with their paid assessments, with their quarterly and annual production reports, and their approved metering documentation. So next slide shows what that looks like. Just a little checkbox. That way, directors can see that on the application when it's in front of you. And also it'll be good for our records moving forward. And we thought it would be really important if there's a shift to a third-party administrator. We know that we check those things, but if a third party takes it over and it's on the form, they'll know that they have to do that. So, so that'll be an upcoming change to that application. So just wanted to make the board aware.
Great. Good report.
Peter, thank you.
Yep. My pleasure.
Sorry there, Rob. Appreciate it and looking into that. Thank you.
Super. Okay. Brings us to item 13, Watermaster Engineers Report. Arden.
Hi, I am going to share my screen real quick. Alrighty, can y'all see the presentation?
Yes.
Excellent. I want to note for Director Ariki that last year we approved 532 feet of new production, but 300 of those acre feet per year were Long Valley Road applying for new production when they were already producing that volume. And 215 acre feet were a temporary new production for Ron Bannock that will only be used this next year. And then for qualified small pumpers, there have been no changes since December 2022. So the next item is the model update, and I will pass it to Maureen.
This is a brief model update here. We'll talk about that a little bit later. As you've heard, we're still working on the model right now. We have developed the model to be consistent with the past model used in the physical solution. We've done the return flow, we've expanded the grid, included the pumping and the outside areas. And really right now we're in the calibration zone still. It's taking a little bit of time to make sure everything is consistent with the observed data. We want to make sure it's as accurate as possible before we unveil it. And then right now we're in the making additional adjustments. And so we'll keep you posted as we have a finished model. It is coming soon. We're just making sure everything looks great.
Great. Thanks, Maureen.
Oh, here's the slide.
Sorry.
Hey, I have a question real quick, if I can butt in. When you see the new approved production by sub area, if we approve new, how do we quantify that against what's gone out of that sub area versus what's new in that sub area? Because we've had transfers just like today that went from the central sub area basin into the southeast sub area basin. Am I missing a way to be able to figure out what our net gain or loss is by sub area?
Arden, I think you've looked at that on the transfers, and is that accounted for in the table?
So the new production tables that we show each month do not include the transfers, but we have begun tracking transfers by sub area with the carryover water that was accrued in one sub area if it's then being transferred to another sub area. And those tables are now going to be included in the annual reports.
Oh, great. All right. Thank you.
There's a future slide that shows all the extras in the annual report this year. And while we're on annual report, this slide says the model is updated through 2022. We're going to try to update it through 2023 if we get the data in time and get everything set to the model. So it's the model will be a living model as we update it every year with the annual report. So it's there's a connection between the two.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. We wanted to provide an update on the compliance letters that we're planning to send out hopefully this month. I first just want to acknowledge what Peter shared in the administrative update about we are checking metering documentation compliance, and that will be something that we check and work with parties who are submitting applications for to make sure that everything is up to date, and also make sure that if parties are submitting applications, we want to make sure that they are also active in submitting the metering production reports. Those are submitted quarterly with the monthly readings, and this is a little reminder that the first quarter is wrapping up for 2024. So we've been, really this past month going through our meter documentation compliance data through a kind of fine-tooth comb and checking a lot of it against what parties are submitting in their annual production reports and also their monthly metering reports. And there have been quite a few parties where we've noticed either, okay, they're submitting information from wells that they say are metered, but we don't have finalized documentation, or we have documentation for meters that aren't being reported. And there will be some cases with parties that we're going to want to check in with them and just get things straightened out before we send them a letter, just to avoid any confusion. But we have been taking a bit of time to make sure that when we send out letters, we have as robust of an understanding about the wells and meters that each party has, and kind of sorting out inconsistencies prior to sending them to make sure that it is accurate. And we're using this information also in tandem. We're updating our database for the annual report so that when we get the information in this upcoming month for our groundwater accounting that goes into the annual report, that it can be as smooth of a process as possible. Are there any questions with this?
Any questions? Public? Board? Excellent report, you guys. Thank you.
We've got a few more things.
Oh, go ahead, Arden.
Yes. All right. So this is just a quick update about Sigma compliance. There's really two dates that are very important for the basin with complying with the Sustainable Groundwater Management Act. And the first one is by April 1st that DWR is informed that we are submitting an annual report, and it will include all of the information that they need. For most basins that are not adjudicated basins, they need to submit their annual reports by April 1st. But Antelope Valley submits a letter explaining that this is an adjudicated basin and our annual report deadline is August 1st. So we've completed all of the requirements due April 1st, informs DWR, and we're ready to move forward with the annual report. So we are in compliance with DWR. And this leads us to the annual report kickoff. I want all of the agencies to know that we will be sending out our data requests tomorrow, asking for water levels, water quality, storage information, and irrigation water return flow data. And we will be requesting that the data are sent back to us by April 19th. You might get some reminders from me closer to that day. So keep your eyes peeled for the data requests to be sent soon. In this annual report, we're planning to add a few more additions as recommended over this past year by the board and the advisory committee. We will be including the carryover maps that we developed later last year that show where carryover water has been accrued throughout the basin, and also compiling this information into tables by sub-area so we can keep track of production rights, new production, annual production in the past year, and carryover by sub-area. This will also include tracking the transfers of carryover water by sub-areas. And in this annual report, we recognize that the tables and the appendices that we've been using to track the production rights and carryover water for each party have gotten a little bit convoluted for parties that have multiple rights. And so we're also going to include a simplified list where parties can look up their name and see what their total production rights, carryover, and transfer water are, to simplify that for the parties. We'll include a discussion about metering compliance and also include model documentation. And in the past, we've kind of presented all of the results in the annual report in the June meeting. But this year, we're interested in presenting them over 3 board meetings so that the information is kind of coming in smaller chunks. So it's a bit more digestible instead of presenting it all at once. So we're interested in feedback on these items and to check and see if this is an appropriate way to go about presenting the data.
Board?
Sounds good.
Sounds great.
Great. We're also interested in presenting one of these in person and are tentatively planning on perhaps the June meeting attending in person, if that is good with the board.
Our June meeting is scheduled for when right now? Let's see.
The 26th.
Okay, everybody good with that?
Yeah.
Can I make a
Love to see you.
recommendation and tell me if this would be in time for our June meeting? Plan a photo that would go into the annual report for the entire board and staff and our Watermaster engineers who are preparing the report, or as many of you who are here, would that be something we could do?
Yes.
Great.
Fantastic. Thank you.
Angel, Patty, if you make sure we get notified of that a couple of weeks before that meeting, so that as pretty as we can.
Patty, it doesn't change.
But I'd really like a photo of our entire board, our entire staff, and our water master engineer, attorney, obviously everybody who contributes to this. So that'd be great. You can wear a tie, Chris.
Would you like a picture of our advisory board, the ones that would like to come?
Oh, that'd be a great idea. I'll throw that out. And a picture that would go into this of our advisory committee for those who could come on that date, or we could get a photograph at the advisory committee. Dennis, what would be the best situation for your advisory group?
The ones that are already posted in the US post office.
We won't use those. Those are a little formal.
I already tried, Dennis.
Yeah.
Work on that. Either get one or get people here.
Okay, that'd be great. And I'll leave that on your to-do list. Thanks, Dennis. Okay. Are we done, Arden? Not yet.
There are a few more items. So here we have just our schedule for the annual report. And as you can see, the short-term deadlines and the work spans several months for this report. We've already submitted our Sigma compliance letter and are sending out the data request tomorrow. On April 17th at the sub-area, in the advisory committee meeting, and sub-area advisory committee meeting with that, we'll be providing a discussion about the model. And then on June 3rd, we'll be posting the draft annual report onto the website. On the June meeting, there will be our second presentation and an opportunity for public comment, and our revised draft will be posted on the website on July 2nd. And that will be followed by the July board meeting. We'll have an annual report presentation another opportunity for public comment. And then the board will vote to approve the annual report with any incorporated comments that are discussed during the meeting. And the final deadline is by August 1st. The annual report must be submitted to the court and also submitted to DWR. Are there any questions about the schedule?
Any questions about the schedule?
No.
There are none. Go ahead, Arden.
Great. So a very brief item. I spoke to Director Karras about my interest in giving a presentation about the Antelope Valley Adjudicated Basin at an upcoming conference, the Western Groundwater Congress, put on by the Groundwater Resources Association of California in October. And he recommended that I share this with the board. There is a session called Management Challenges and Opportunities in Adjudicated Groundwater Basins. And this is a conference that is primarily hydrogeologists and engineers doing technical work that supports groundwater basin management. And there's also some groundwater sustainability agency managers who may be there. And there's a lot of GSAs who are kind of looking at the process of SGMA and recognizing that either their basins may be adjudicated or they have a lot to learn from the adjudicated basins and are wanting to understand more about the management. And the goal is to really present the adjudicated basins in a positive light and show that adjudication isn't necessarily a dirty word. So recognizing that over the past few years, Antelope Valley has successfully achieved ramp down, which is a huge accomplishment. I'm interested in giving a presentation called Achieving Ramp Down, 8 Years of Groundwater Management in the Antelope Valley Adjudicated Basin, which would give an overview of the Antelope Valley adjudication in a positive light, share the groundwater conditions throughout the ramp down process, and provide an overview of the technical needs and the lessons learned throughout the last few years of management. This would all be presenting publicly available information that's from the annual report, and I'm more than happy to deliver the presentation to the board and receive any feedback or make changes prior to the conference. Are there any concerns about this?
What were the dates and locations on that conference?
The date of the conference is it's early October. I think it might be the 6th through the 8th, and it's in Tahoe.
Arden, can I ask you to confirm those dates and send it to me when you have time?
Yes, I will. Yes.
Yeah, Arden, go ahead and send it to the entire board. And if you can tell by then the date that you would be presenting, I think some of us could be very interested in it.
Mm-hmm. Okay, great. Absolutely.
Arden will have a fan club. It'll be great.
We would prefer it was in a different place, but since they've already chose Tahoe. So that'd be great. I think this is fantastic, Arden, and that you're doing this and getting involved in this. And I think as much information as we can get out to the other basins going through this and the hard lessons we learned and how pulled it off, how we built consensus with everyone involved. I think that's a tremendous message to send out. So thank you.
Thank you. And I may be reaching out to the board members to ask some questions about advice that they would like to pass on to managers and get some quotes for the presentation.
That'd be great. And if whenever you think you're ready for like a draft, you have your draft presentation and you want to provide it to us before that, that might be a good time for both the advisory committee and the public and everybody to weigh in and give you some pointers.
Thank you very much.
No, thank you. Anything else?
Yes, so the last items are just kind of a brief summary of the different tasks that were included in the performance review developed by the administration. These are the 5 tasks that are in the contract from 2022 to 2024. And the administration, the admin requested that we just provide a brief overview of what those tasks entail and the accomplishments over the last couple of years. So briefly, the first task is project coordination and meetings. And this is primarily attending the board meetings and answering questions, but also, and in this box, we also put a lot of the sort of miscellaneous Watermaster issues. This project involves a lot of communication and a lot of time kind of spent investigating and answering questions that may arise in meetings or may be related to specific parties. We'll note that in the original contract, it included 3 in-person meetings and the rest of the meetings being virtual on our end. And we haven't requested the past couple years to attend.
In progress and on schedule for getting the model accomplished.
The third task is project communications with staff and attorney. And there's a lot of kind of overlap between task 1 and task 3. We have almost daily communications with admin staff, council, parties, board members. And this includes providing insight into any amendments to the rules and regulations or assisting admin in answering specific questions from parties, as well as the communication side of addressing these Watermaster issues as they arrive. This includes illegal pumping issue, material injury questions, and looking into enforcement. And we also provide admin the data that is used to send out the variable rate assessment invoices and the RWAs. The fourth one is monitoring data and analyses. And we're keeping track of the groundwater accounting throughout every meeting, and also keeping track of the metering program administration, communicating with meter installers and testers and parties regarding metering, organizing, digitizing, reviewing the metering production reports that are sent in each quarter. We've developed over the past 2 years a production and metering data management system and continue to keep that updated and maintain the water level database and keep that updated throughout the year. This also includes compliance tracking and in the past few months starting to look into and calculate the age of carryover water. And that will continue throughout this year, looking more into for parties, especially ones with more complicated transfers, trying to understand the age of the carryover water that they have. And the last task out of the 5 is the annual report and Sigma compliance. So we've submitted successful and timely annual reports in compliance with DWR's Sigma regulations. And the annual reports are really where we do the monitoring of safe yield components. The analyses included in the annual reports include the water level contours, review of the hydrographs, looking at water quality, calculating storage change, looking at land use. Last year, we began small pumper monitoring using remote sensing data, recharge calculations, and the appendix tables. We're adding the sub-area analyses to this year's annual report. And I'd just like to note that Todd Groundwater works in basins throughout California for Sigma implementation and compliance. So we're up to date with all of the Sigma best practices and regulations, and we're able to utilize that expertise from across California to best serve Antelope Valley. And then the very, very last thing are the additional services that are not included in the general Watermaster engineer contract that we have. So the main contract funding is not used for these services. This is for storage agreements, applications, and litigation support. That is the last slide that we have for the update. Are there any questions about this?
Very good update. Any discussion?
No.
I had one question of Craig on this. For when our Watermaster engineer provides litigation support,
Yes.
and if it's a cost that can be reimbursed through attorney fees and costs, are we billing that, or is that something
We had one instance in that, as you recall, we had Todd Groundwater come to San Jose for a hearing that we had in a matter, and those costs were reimbursed to them, but we have not recovered those costs as of yet. There's a stay on our recovery of costs in the Zamolza matter. So,
in my question, I understand that, but are we billing those as litigation costs or expert costs?
Those were litigation costs that were billed.
And we will continue doing that in the future
absolutely.
Whenever we can recover that.
When we use them for litigation purposes, definitely.
Okay, great. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Okay. Arden, Maureen, are you done?
Yes. Thank you.
Report.
Yes.
Great. Now, are you hanging out till after our closed session and be available if there's any questions in closed session?
Yes.
Okay. We will not include you in closed session, but if we need something from you, we may ask, and then we would like you to be available after closed session too.
Okay, will we be included in the updates not pertaining to the?
Yes.
Oh, okay. Yes, thank you.
That's not the portion directly relating to the evaluation of the Watermaster engineer.
Thank you.
We'll hang on the line if you need us. We'll be in the lobby. You can.
Super. Thank you. Any other questions?
Nope.
Okay.
Good info.
Excellent report. That brings us to our general counsel's report.
Yes, we'll have most of the discussion will be in closed session on the active matters, 2 appeals and another matter. The main focus of our attention is the memorandum on carryover and aging carryover, and how to incorporate this in a storage agreement after 10 years. The board wanted to have set forward what the judgment and the rules and regulations say concerning carryover as it gets to the 10-year limit, what the storage agreements should encompass, timing of such particularly transferred carryover water, and how this will be calculated. There's no action required of the board today. We all know we have almost 2 years before we'll have the first 10-year time frame, but we wanted to get ahead of this bus and start the discussion. And so the memo reflects in general what the judgment and rules and regs say, but I believe there's substantial input that still is yet to come. From the advisory committee, they made a couple of comments that we can respond to and develop. But it seemed to me, and we can talk about this as we get response from the public and the board, that it would be helpful if there were 4 or 5 hypotheticals in this memo for how it actually works under certain circumstances. So I intend to do that if that would be helpful. I know some of you have other issues that you want addressed about how it's going to operate with the storage agreement. And this is just an initial, let's get talking about it and develop the concepts behind it. There's a lot of tricky issues. The length of time, I know the advisory committee was concerned about how long out the storage agreement goes, when is the water used, where's the point of extraction of the water, a lot of complicated issues. So this is the opening discussion, questions that the board wants answered. issues that need to be fleshed out. So I'm open to hearing comments from the board, the public, the AC, whoever wants to give their thoughts about it.
You want to go with public comment first, and that might shape some of the board's comments?
Yeah, I think that'd be great. Public comment, and this memo went through the advisory committee?
It went to the advisory committee, and they made a comment about the timing of the storage agreements, and seemed to have some questions about how this would operate in reality.
Okay.
And that's why I thought, let's do 4 or 5 hypotheticals involving carryover, involving the 10-year limit, involving transferred carryover, to see how these principles interact.
Great. I think we're off to an excellent start. Any comments from the public? Any comments from the board?
Yes, great. I got a couple of comments. One of the things that was brought up in the advisory committee meeting that kind of grabbed my attention, our carryover timeline when it starts. So 2017 is the first year, but really that allocation of 2017 did not become carryover until 2018. So when does the clock start from your perspective? Does it start in 2017 or 2018?
Well, if there was carryover that occurred in 2016, if the development of the carryover occurred in 2016, the first year is 2017. What do you think?
And it would be the same for 2017,
right.
It would be 2018 if
right.
it occurred on that year.
Right.
That's what I thought. I just wanted to hear that. The other thing is what's the proposed path on figuring out what the structure of this storage agreement looks like? Excuse me, I know everybody was concerned about what a fee structure would look like. How do we go about establishing that from your opinion?
Yeah, I think it would be helpful that we do a template agreement, not to be used in every situation, but that covers the main topics for a storage agreement. Time, identification of the carryover, age of the carryover, expectations about notice of point of extraction, use of the carryover water, certain topics like that. My thought is let's get it in writing, let's flesh out the concepts and have a template that everyone can be comfortable with instead of a whole bunch of one-off contracts floating around. That'd be my suggestion.
Well, and all stuff I agree with, but what's our first step in heading that way? On getting the template established? Are we talking about an ad hoc committee? Are you talking about board direction to have you develop one? What are we looking at?
I think board direction to having council work with the engineer and staff to develop the template, then have the discussion. That would be my recommendation. Put the onus on us. Let us flesh out the concepts, the issues, keep you advised about when that template's going to be developed. I mean, I don't see this as taking an immense amount of time. I'd like to report to you next month about where we are at in the memo, give you an amended memorandum, and then in the month after that, have a template for a storage agreement. Get the discussion going and get specific.
And since this is the general counsel's report, we really can't direct you to do that today, correct?
You can direct me to do this.
Okay.
Here's my only comment on it is some of this work for the template and development of this can some of it be done by our administrative staff just for cost purposes and then working directly with you on this?
Absolutely. Okay. Absolutely. I would intend to rely on their input, and maybe the best idea is to have staff generate a template with input from the engineer and council to put that together.
Okay. Peter, are you good with that?
We can do that.
Okay. And one of the things that I think we'd want to make very clear to everybody too on any type of storage agreement, even if it is a acquisition of carryover rights for investment purposes, just to reiterate that any extraction point would have to come back. Subsequent fees and analysis would follow that for use in the future.
Definitely.
Okay, good comments, Brandon. And do you think an ad hoc committee is necessary, or?
I don't think so, not right now. I just want to try and dialogue on a path to head down to get it done.
Yeah, I think our administrative staff is involved.
Couldn't agree more.
In this, and would be good to take the first swing at it. So that'd be great. Okay. Anything else?
Does the direction to have staff work that?
Yeah, work with you and our engineer starting to develop the things necessary. And Craig and Arden, if you can be pushing as much work to our administrative staff as you can to keep your.
Well, we can push a lot of it to administrative staff.
Hey, Director Pierce, easy. I don't want ABAC getting wore out on us.
Well, their billing rates are a lot less than the other two billing rates, so I'm just being conscious about our budget.
I agree.
So that's it. Or at least I think they are, right, Peter?
And the last thing to mention, separate from the carryover memo, just so that you know, we do monitor the motions to intervene when they're to occur. The one that we required of the party last month, they filed the motion to intervene. So that is on our radar. We don't let people get off the hook who need to intervene and become parties to the judgment.
Okay, great. I need to start hurrying us up a little bit. Is there anything else on this item?
That's it.
Okay. Board members, future agenda items, any?
There was, what one was that? Well, I guess the only one was.
Carried unanimously. We will go into closed session starting at 20. Well, can we get set up that quickly in there? Great. Thank you.
Hey.
Arden, are you there?
Yes, I'm here.
Okay, we're back into open session. We had a closed session and we do have a reportable action, and I'll have Peter take care of that.
All right. Thank you, Chair Paris. So the board met in closed session. They discussed the performance of Todd groundwater, and there was consensus that they're overall satisfactory, and they were satisfactory on all, on 4 of the tasks. And there was some undetermined on the modeling, and the caveat to that is that we recognize that the modeling work is in process and still to be completed. So there's an overall positive report on Todd groundwater on all tasks, and the board's consensus aligns strongly with the advisory committee's report as well. So that's all we have to report coming out of closed session.
And for Arden and Maureen, Peter told you what our consensus is. We're feel we're very fortunate to have you, and I think our next action is to get a motion to have staff work with our engineer for extension amendment for the extension. That's item 18. Consideration possible action on authorization to seek amendment to the existing professional services agreement. And is there a motion to do that?
So moved.
Moved by Brandon.
Second.
Second by Kathy. Is there any further discussion? And before we take action on that, I would like to open up for public comment. Advisory committee, Julie. Come on, come give some public comment. Julie Kyle has come to give our public comment about this. Go ahead, Julie.
Well, not only through the advisory, I won't speak for all of them, but for Galen and I, it's been great to work with Todd. I think they've been on point and on task on about everything we've asked them. Of course, it's a sensitive item for all of us on the budget portion. And I can say for them, they have never come back to us and said, that's not in our scope. And those are words that I will never like again. So I'm glad to have you guys working with Todd again. They've been great.
Great.
Thank you
so much. And Maureen and Arden, you aren't in the boardroom, but we have another large meeting that's going to take place pretty shortly. So if it sounds like I'm rushing this, I'm sorry, but I am. But you're doing a great job. We look forward to working with you for another at least 3 years after 2024. Is that right?
Correct.
And any comments from either of you at this point?
Just thank you for the feedback, and it is a joy to work with everyone in Antelope Valley and be able to continue to serve the basin.
Ditto what Arden said. It's been great to work on this project, and there's been so much success in the adjudication and how it's been implemented. So we're just happy to be part of the team.
Great. Well, and we're happy you're part of this team. So any other comments before we vote on the motion? All in favor of the motion by roll call vote?
Okay, Director McLaren,
Yes.
Director Ariki,
Yes.
Director Calandri,
Yes.
Director Urosic,
Yes.
Director Paris.
Yes, motion's carried unanimously. That brings us to item 19, adjournment, and our next meeting. I think we kind of have to keep the meeting on April 24th or we'll screw up our whole schedule.
I will not be able to attend.
Can you work with our alternate? Let's make sure who can attend.
Is Adrian Rucka on the line?
Yes, I am, and I won't be able to attend either.
A, is Angelica on the line? Derek?
I don't believe she is, but we can check with her and confirm. I can get a hold of her, or you can, Brandon.
Are you available on the 24th?
I am, yes.
Okay.
So being that I'm a fair board director, I mean, if I have to be here,
Who is your alternate?
we just started getting a new person. Barbara is away, so that would only give him no chance to be,
Brought up to speed.
yeah.
Chair
Yes.
Harris,
Yes.
I'll just throw out that there's 5 Wednesdays in May, so if you wanted to consider May 1st, that might be opportune.
I'm looking at the schedule. May. So that would be May
1st.
Oh, May 1st. That's for May 1st.
I can make May 1st work.
I could do.
Why Adam is looking at that, just throw out another appreciation day back for always hosting us.
Yeah, I can make it work. Okay, and do we have to do any other scheduling? Advisory committee can take place on April 17th. Everything can stay the same. We just change our meeting May 1st. And Arden and Maureen, that will work for you?
That works for me.
Oh, Dennis?
Yeah, the only question I would have about staying with the 17th is if the agenda packet, there'd be a draft agenda and agenda packet for the 1st ready 3 weeks early.
It's the same time frame for us.
Yeah, I mean, we're just changing the meeting, so we keep everything else the same.
Yeah, so as long as that draft packet is available for the meeting on the 17th, we can continue.
Yeah, Peter, is that within our scope of work, or do you need a amendment?
I would like a change.
Little joke, Dennis.
We will bring back a request for additional money for a picture.
We will work on arranging a photographer for our June meeting for that.
Yes.
Great, okay.
Okay, good.
So May
Good, that worked
1st,
out.
and Patty, you'll get that out as soon as possible on our schedules.
Schedule that.
And that brings us to adjournment. Anything else for the good of the Watermaster Board? Julie?
Any update on Barrel Springs after the email that we all got?
Oh, Craig, are you able to give us an update on Barrel
I'll
Springs?
just tell you, Julie, that the abandonment of the appeal was because they filed in the wrong court. And they have not moved away from pursuing the appeal.
Okay, anything else? Going once, going twice, meetings adjourned. Thank you all.